Alex Chen pressed his face against the observation deck window, watching the strange purple nebula swirl in the distance. His parents had brought him to Omega-7 Station for their research project, and while most 12-year-olds would complain about spending summer vacation on a boring space station, Alex found it fascinating. The station housed traders, scientists, and travelers from dozens of different alien species. "Alex, come help me with Rascal," his mother, Dr. Priya Sharma, called from the lab. She was one of the few xenobiologists brave enough to study Earth's most dangerous predators in space environments. Today she was running tests on their latest subject, a honey badger, that had been genetically enhanced for intelligence and aggression studies. Alex walked into the lab where Rascal sat in his reinforced habitat. The honey badger looked up at the boy with bright, intelligent eyes. Most people thought honey badgers were cute, fluffy creatures. They were wrong. Rascal was 30 pounds of pure fearlessness wrapped in fur and claws. The genetic enhancements had made him even smarter than normal honey badgers, which was terrifying since regular honey badgers already fought lions and won. "He likes you," Priya said, watching Rascal's calm behavior around her son. "That's unusual. Honey badgers don't typically bond with humans this way." Alex smiled and carefully offered Rascal a piece of fruit through the feeding slot. The honey badger took it gently, never taking his eyes off the boy. There was something almost protective in that gaze. The station's peaceful atmosphere shattered when alarms began blaring. Red warning lights flashed as Captain Ross's voice echoed through the communication system. "All civilians to emergency shelters immediately. We have incoming hostile ships. This is not a drill." Through the lab's viewport, Alex could see sleek, dark vessels approaching the station. They moved with predatory grace, their hulls adorned with the crimson markings of the Drakari Empire. The Drakari were known throughout the galaxy for their brutal expansion tactics and their belief that might made right. "Alex, we need to get to the shelter," Priya said, grabbing her emergency kit. But before they could move, the station shuddered under weapons fire. The lights flickered and went out, replaced by dim emergency lighting. "Mom, what about Rascal?" Alex asked, looking back at the honey badger who was now standing alert in his habitat, sensing danger. Priya hesitated for a moment, then made a decision that would change everything. "Grab his travel carrier. We can't leave him here." Alex quickly opened the habitat and coaxed Rascal into the reinforced travel carrier designed for dangerous specimens. The honey badger went willingly, trusting the boy completely. As they headed for the corridor, explosions rocked the station. Smoke filled the air and debris rained from the ceiling. The main corridor was chaos. Aliens of various species ran in panic while station security tried to maintain order. Captain Ross, a grizzled human veteran, was coordinating the defense with his mixed-species security team. "Dr. Sharma, get your son to Shelter Bay 3, Ross shouted over the noise. "We're holding them off, but barely. They never made it to the shelter." A section of the corridor exploded inward as Drakari soldiers blasted through the station's hull. The reptilian warriors were 7 feet tall with armored scales and glowing yellow eyes. They moved with military precision, stunning fleeing civilians with energy weapons. Alex found himself separated from his mother in the confusion. A Drakari soldier spotted him and raised his weapon. The boy clutched Rascal's carrier and tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The stunning beam hit him, and everything went dark. When Alex woke up, he was on a Drakari ship. The cell was small and dimly lit, with smooth metal walls and a single bench. The air smelled of ozone and something reptilian. Rascal's carrier sat beside him, and Alex was relieved to see the honey badger was awake and alert. "You okay, buddy?" Alex whispered, checking the carrier's life support systems. Rascal looked at him and made a soft, chittering sound. Honey badger language for "I'm fine, but someone's going to pay for this." Other prisoners were in nearby cells. Alex could hear crying and worried voices speaking in various alien languages. Through a small viewport, he could see they were already moving through hyperspace, leaving the station far behind. A Drakari guard approached the cell, his yellow eyes studying Alex with curiosity. "Small human cub," the alien said in accented standard galactic. "Your species makes much noise over such tiny things. You will be useful for negotiations, and where's my mother?" Alex demanded, surprised by how steady his own voice sounded. The guard laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Safe for now. Your people will pay well for your return. Humans are known for their foolish attachment to offspring." The guard moved on, dismissing Alex as harmless. This was the Drakari's first mistake. They saw a human child with a pet and assumed both were helpless. They had no understanding of human protective instincts or the bond between a boy and his honey badger. Alex sat quietly, listening to the ship's sounds and mentally mapping its layout. His parents had taught him to be observant, to notice details that others missed. The guard rotations, the ship's routine, the placement of security cameras. Alex began filing it all away. Beside him, Rascal watched everything with those intelligent eyes. The honey badger's enhanced genetics had given him abilities far beyond his natural cousins. He could sense the fear and aggression of the other prisoners, smell the complex chemical signatures of different alien species, and most importantly, he could feel Alex's determination. The Drakari thought they had captured a helpless human child and his pet. They had no idea they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Somewhere in human space, people were already learning about the attack on Omega-7. And when humans discovered that aliens had taken one of their children, the galaxy was about to learn why Earth was home to the most dangerous predators in known space. Alex looked at Rascal and whispered, "Don't worry, buddy. They have no idea what they've done. But they're going to find out." The honey badger chittered softly in response. In honey badger terms, it meant let them come. The Drakari prison ship subjugator cut through hyperspace like a knife through silk. In the command center, Commander Velneth studied the reports from the Omega-7 raid with satisfaction. The attack had been perfect, minimal losses, maximum prisoners, and most importantly, they had captured several humans, including a juvenile. Commander, his communications officer reported, "We're receiving multiple transmissions from human space. They're demanding the return of their prisoners." Velneth's scaled lips curved in what passed for a smile among his species. "Let them demand. We hold their young. Humans are emotional creatures who value their offspring above logic. They will negotiate." In the prison hold, Alex had spent 3 days learning everything he could about the ship. The guards followed predictable patterns. The security cameras had blind spots. The ventilation system connected every section of the vessel. Most importantly, the Drakari treated him like he was harmless. They had put him in a cell with 3 other prisoners, peaceful Zenthari merchants who had been traveling on the station. The Zenthari looked like tall, thin mammals with soft gray fur and large, gentle eyes. They spoke in whispers and seemed terrified of their captors. "Young human," one of the Zenthari said softly, "you should not anger the Drakari. They are cruel to those who resist." Alex was sitting cross-legged on the floor, quietly observing a loose panel in the wall. "I'm not planning to anger them," he said. "I'm planning something else." Rascal's carrier sat nearby, and the honey badger was watching the guards with intense focus. The Drakari had decided the pet was harmless and allowed Alex to keep him for emotional comfort. They thought honey badgers were like the gentle companion animals of other species. "Your pet seems restless," another Zenthari observed, noticing how Rascal paced in his carrier. "He's not my pet," Alex said quietly. "He's my partner, and he's getting ready." The Zenthari didn't understand, but they could sense something different about the human child. While other prisoners cowered or wept, Alex remained calm and watchful. There was an intelligence in his young eyes that reminded them of predators from their homeworld. Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Kate Morrison stood before the Emergency Council of the Human Defense Alliance. The holographic displays showed the subjugators' projected course toward Drakari space. "They have 12 of our people," Admiral Morrison reported, including Dr. Priya Sharma and her 12-year-old son Alex. The council chamber fell silent. Taking human adults was one thing. It happened in border conflicts and could be handled through traditional military or diplomatic channels. But taking a human child crossed a line that most species in the galaxy didn't even know existed. "What do we know about the boy?" asked General Torres, head of special operations, son of 2 xenobiologists. "High intelligence scores, has been living on frontier stations most of his life, and according to his mother's research notes, he's been working closely with an enhanced honey badger specimen." Several council members exchanged glances. Enhanced honey badger meant genetic modifications for increased intelligence and aggression. Regular honey badgers were already considered among Earth's most fearless predators. "Admiral," General Torres said quietly, "I recommend we activate Ghost Protocol." Ghost Protocol was humanity's most classified military operation. It had never been used before, created specifically for one scenario: the rescue of human children from hostile aliens. Back on the subjugator, Alex had made friends with the ship's ventilation system. The ducts were large enough for a small human to crawl through, and more importantly, large enough for a honey badger to hunt through. He had been carefully mapping the ship's layout, identifying key systems and guard positions. "Little human," a Drakari guard said, approaching the cell. "Your people are sending messages. They want to talk." "Good," Alex said simply. The guard studied him with those yellow reptilian eyes. "You are not afraid like the others. Why?" Alex looked up at the 7-foot alien warrior and smiled. It was not the smile of a scared child. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Because you don't understand what you've done," Alex said. "You think you caught a human cub and his pet, but you actually cornered a human child and his honey badger." "There's a big difference," the guard laughed, a harsh sound. "Your small earth creatures mean nothing to Drakari warriors." "Maybe," Alex said, still smiling. "But honey badgers don't care how big you are. They fight lions. They fight entire packs of hyenas. They fight anything that threatens their family. And you know what the really scary part is?" The guard leaned closer, curious despite himself. "This one's been enhanced for intelligence and aggression, and I'm his family now." As if responding to his words, Rascal stood up in his carrier and looked directly at the guard. For a moment, the Drakari warrior found himself staring into the eyes of Earth's most fearless predator. Something primitive in his brain screamed danger, but his rational mind dismissed it. How could such a small, furry creature be threatening? The guard walked away, but he found himself looking back at the honey badger several times. There was something unsettling about those intelligent eyes. In the cell, the Zenthari huddled together nervously. "Young human," one whispered. "Do you really think your people will come for you?" Alex was working on the loose wall panel, using a piece of debris to carefully widen the gap. "They're already coming," he said confidently. "Humans don't abandon their children, ever. And when they get here, you'll see why Earth is considered the most dangerous planet in the galaxy." "But the Drakari are strong," a Zenthari said fearfully. "They have powerful ships and weapons." Alex paused in his work and looked at the gentle aliens. "The Drakari think strength means size and weapons. But real strength is different. Real strength is never giving up. Real strength is protecting your family no matter what the cost. And real strength is having a honey badger watching your back." Rascal chittered softly from his carrier, and Alex smiled. In the enhanced honey badger's intelligent mind, plans were forming. The ship's ventilation system had been thoroughly scouted during their 3 days aboard. Guard positions were memorized. Weak points had been identified. The Drakari had made a fundamental error in understanding both humans and honey badgers. They assumed fear would make their prisoners compliant. They didn't realize that cornering a human child would activate the most dangerous instincts of both species. Soon, Alex thought, they would learn that lesson. And the galaxy would discover why you should never, ever threaten a human cub or underestimate their honey badger. The Drakari homeworld of Krath Prime loomed ahead like a red jewel against the stars. Alex pressed his face to the small viewport in his cell, studying the planet's surface. Massive cities sprawled across the continents, connected by gleaming transport networks. This was the heart of an empire that controlled over 50 star systems. Impressive, is it not, small human? Commander Velneth had come to personally observe his most valuable prisoner. Your people will see this and understand the futility of resistance. Alex turned from the viewport and looked up at the Drakari commander. After a week aboard the ship, he had learned to read the subtle body language of the reptilian species. Velneth was confident, perhaps overconfident. "It's very pretty," Alex said politely. "My mom would love to study the atmospheric composition. She's really interested in how different species adapt to their home environments." Velneth's yellow eyes narrowed. The human child showed no fear, no desperation. This was not the behavior he expected from a prisoner facing the might of the Drakari Empire. "You will be separated from the other prisoners when we land," Velneth informed him. "You will be housed in our most secure facility. Your emotional support animal will remain with you to prevent psychological breakdown." Alex nodded and glanced at Rascal's carrier. The honey badger was lying still, but Alex could see his eyes tracking every movement the commander made. Rascal had been studying their captors just as carefully as Alex had been studying the ship. "Thank you," Alex said. "Rascal gets upset when we're apart for too long." The commander walked away, satisfied that his prize prisoner was properly subdued. Behind him, Alex and Rascal exchanged a look that would have chilled the Drakari's blood if he had understood its meaning. The prison complex on Krath Prime was a fortress carved into a mountain. Massive walls rose from the rocky ground, topped with energy barriers and weapon platforms. It housed the Empire's most dangerous political prisoners and was considered completely escape-proof. Alex's new cell was larger than the one on the ship, with an actual bed and a small desk. More importantly, it had a sophisticated ventilation system that connected to the rest of the complex. The Drakari had even provided a proper habitat for Rascal, complete with exercise areas and feeding systems. "They're trying to keep me comfortable," Alex explained to Rascal as he set up the honey badger's new home. "They think happy prisoners are easier to manage." Rascal explored his new environment thoroughly, paying special attention to the ventilation grates and the gaps between wall panels. His enhanced intelligence allowed him to create mental maps far more detailed than any normal animal could manage. 3 days after their arrival, the human diplomatic delegation landed on Krath Prime. Alex watched through his cell's viewport as their shuttle touched down in the prison complex's landing bay. Even from a distance, he could see they carried themselves like military personnel, trying to look like diplomats. The lead negotiator was introduced as James Liu, a tall man with graying hair and calm eyes. With him were Dr. Sarah Kim, apparently a specialist in interspecies relations, and 3 aides whose names Alex didn't catch. They all wore standard diplomatic uniforms and carried themselves with the proper mixture of concern and professionalism. But Alex noticed things the Drakari missed. The way Dr. Kim's eyes swept the complex, cataloging defenses and weak points, how one of the aides unconsciously checked sight lines and cover positions, the small communication devices they thought they had hidden. These weren't just diplomats. They were Ghost Battalion. Emperor Drakthul himself had come to witness the negotiations. The massive Drakari ruler stood 8 feet tall, his scales gleaming with metallic implants that showed his rank. He received the human delegation in the complex's main hall, surrounded by his most elite guards. "Welcome to Krath Prime," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I trust you are prepared to discuss reasonable terms for your prisoner's release." James Liu stepped forward, his diplomatic mask perfect. "Your Imperial Majesty, we are here to negotiate the immediate release of our citizens. The taking of civilians, especially children, violates numerous galactic treaties. Treaties written by weak species who fear strength," Emperor Drakthul replied dismissively. "Your people will learn respect for Drakari power. We demand territorial concessions, trade agreements, and formal recognition of our expansion rights." Alex, watching through a security feed in his cell, saw the moment when the human delegation's mask slipped. It was just for an instant, but their diplomatic expressions were replaced by something cold and predatory. Then the masks returned, and they continued negotiations as if nothing had happened. "I'm afraid those terms are unacceptable," Dr. Kim said smoothly. "Perhaps we could discuss alternative arrangements." The Emperor's eyes glowed with satisfaction. "You are in no position to refuse. We have broadcast images of your young human throughout the galaxy. Everyone watches to see if the mighty humans will bow to protect one small cub." That was when Alex realized the Drakari's fatal mistake. They thought the galaxy was watching to see if humans would surrender. But the galaxy was actually watching to see what happened when you threatened a human child. In species across known space, beings who had studied humanity were placing bets. Not on whether the humans would surrender, but on how spectacular their response would be. The Zenthari, now freed and safely home, were telling anyone who would listen about the strange calm of the human boy and his unsettling companion. The peaceful traders had recognized something their captors missed. They had been in the presence of sleeping predators. Dr. Priya Sharma, rescued in a separate operation that had seen an entire Drakari patrol fleet mysteriously disappear, was coordinating with human intelligence. Her research on enhanced honey badgers had suddenly become classified material of the highest importance. In his cell, Alex continued his careful observations. He had mapped every corridor, identified every guard rotation, and located every security system. Rascal had explored the ventilation network and found several routes that led to critical ship systems. "How long do you think they'll keep trying to negotiate?" Alex asked Rascal during their evening routine. The honey badger looked at him with those intelligent eyes and made a soft, chittering sound. In their private language, it meant, "Not much longer." "They're getting ready." Alex smiled and settled down for sleep. Tomorrow, he suspected, would be very interesting. The Drakari thought they held all the advantages. They had the prisoner, the fortress, and the military might of an empire. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't understand honey badgers. And they certainly didn't understand what happened when you combined human intelligence with honey badger fearlessness. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth was considered the most dangerous planet in known space, and it was going to start with one 12-year-old boy and his 30-pound partner who feared absolutely nothing. The negotiations had been going in circles for 2 days. Alex watched from his cell as the human diplomats and Drakari officials met in the complex's central chamber. The aliens grew more frustrated with each session, while the humans maintained their calm, professional demeanor. Emperor Drakthul was losing patience. The mighty Drakari Empire was not accustomed to lengthy discussions with inferior species. In his throne room, he studied reports from across the galaxy. Other species were watching these negotiations with unusual interest, and some were making military preparations that concerned his intelligence officers. "Bring the human cub to the negotiation chamber," the Emperor commanded. "It is time to show these diplomats the reality of their situation." Alex felt a strange calm settle over him as the guards approached his cell. This was it, the moment everything would change. He looked at Rascal, who was alert and ready in his habitat. "Stay close, buddy," Alex whispered. "It's showtime." The guards escorted Alex through corridors he had memorized, past security stations he had cataloged, to the central chamber where the negotiations were taking place. Rascal's travel carrier came with them, the guards still believing the honey badger was just a comfort animal. The chamber was impressive, with soaring ceilings and walls carved from native stone. Emperor Drakthul sat on a massive throne, flanked by his elite guards. The human delegation sat at a curved table facing the Drakari officials. When Alex entered, he saw something flicker across the humans' faces. It wasn't the relief or desperation the Drakari expected. It was recognition, followed by a cold satisfaction that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. "Behold your precious human cub," Emperor Drakthul announced dramatically. "Young, helpless, completely at our mercy. This is what your species values above logic and reason." Alex stood quietly, studying the room. The Drakari had made several tactical errors in the chamber's design. Too many blind spots, inadequate coverage of the ventilation access points, and guard positions that could be easily compromised. He filed it all away. James Liu, the lead negotiator, looked at Alex with what appeared to be paternal concern. "Are you all right, son? Have they hurt you?" "I'm fine, sir," Alex replied politely. "They've actually been pretty nice. Good food, clean quarters, and they let me keep Rascal with me." Emperor Drakthul smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "See how we treat prisoners humanely? But this generosity has limits. Your delegation will accept our terms, or the child's situation may become less comfortable." That was the moment everything changed. The diplomatic masks didn't just slip. They completely disappeared. James Liu's expression transformed from concerned diplomat to something far more dangerous. Dr. Kim's eyes went ice cold, and the 3 aides shifted into positions that clearly revealed their military training. "I'm sorry," James Liu said, his voice still perfectly polite but carrying an undertone that made several Drakari guards step backward. "Could you repeat that? I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you just threaten a human child?" Emperor Drakthul, used to intimidating other species, didn't recognize the warning signs. "I stated facts. The child's welfare depends on your cooperation. This is how negotiations work." Dr. Kim leaned forward slightly, her diplomatic training warring with something much more primitive. "Your Imperial Majesty, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You seem to believe you're negotiating from a position of strength. Are we not?" the Emperor demanded. "We hold your young. We have the military might of an empire. You have only words." Alex watched this exchange with fascination. He had read about human protective instincts in his xenobiology studies, but seeing them activated in real time was impressive. The diplomats were fighting to maintain their cover, but something deeper was taking control. "Let me explain something about humans," James Liu said, rising from his chair. The motion seemed casual. but Alex noticed how it positioned the man for optimal combat angles. We are a social species with very specific behavioral patterns regarding our young. When our children are threatened, we don't negotiate. We eliminate threats. The Emperor laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Brave words from a species barely out of its home system. Guards, perhaps our guest would benefit from a demonstration of Drakari strength. One of the elite guards, a massive warrior in powered armor, stepped toward Alex and raised his hand as if to strike. The blow never landed. Rascal exploded from his carrier like a furry missile. The honey badger's enhanced genetics and natural fearlessness combined into 30 pounds of absolute fury. He latched onto the guard's arm with claws and teeth that could crack armor, climbing toward the alien's throat with deadly intent. Simultaneously, the human delegation dropped all pretense. Dr. Kim produced a weapon from somewhere in her diplomatic robes and fired a stunning blast that dropped 2 guards. The 3 aides moved with lethal precision, disabling security cameras and blocking exits. James Liu had somehow acquired a plasma rifle and was covering the room's main entrance. Ghost Battalion. This is Diplomat 6. Dr. Kim spoke into a communication device that definitely wasn't standard diplomatic equipment. The package is secure. Initiate Phoenix Protocol. Alex found himself pulled behind cover as the chamber erupted into chaos. Through the confusion, he could see Rascal still attached to the guard who had threatened him. The honey badger was systematically working his way toward vital points, with the focused determination of a predator that feared nothing. Alex, James Liu called out, "We're getting you out of here. Stay down and follow my lead." "What about the other prisoners?" Alex asked, even as energy blasts flew overhead. "Already extracted," Dr. Kim replied, somehow maintaining cover fire while speaking. "We've been busy while the Emperor enjoyed his dramatic negotiations." Emperor Drakthul was screaming orders to his remaining guards, demanding explanations for how human diplomats had suddenly become armed commandos. His intelligence officers were frantically trying to understand how their impregnable fortress had been compromised. Outside the complex, alarms began wailing. Through the chamber's viewports, Alex could see explosions in the distance. The diplomatic shuttle that had brought the humans was gone, replaced by something that looked far more military. "How long have you been planning this?" Alex asked as they moved toward what appeared to be a hidden exit. "Since the moment we learned they had taken you," James Liu replied. "Rule 1 of dealing with humans, never threaten our children. Rule 2, if you break Rule 1, we will find you. Rule 3, when we find you, we don't negotiate." Rascal had finally finished with his victim and came bounding back to Alex, covered in alien blood but completely unharmed. The honey badger looked satisfied in the way that only comes from successfully defending family. "Good boy," Alex said, checking his partner for injuries. "I told them you were dangerous." As they reached the hidden exit, explosions rocked the complex. Through the chaos, Alex could hear Emperor Drakthul demanding to know how the humans had infiltrated his most secure facility. The answer was simple, but would have horrified the Drakari if they understood it. The human delegation hadn't been diplomats pretending to be soldiers. They had been Ghost Battalion operators pretending to be diplomats. And Ghost Battalion had one mission: bring human children home no matter the cost. Alex looked back once as they evacuated the chamber. The mighty Drakari Empire had just learned that there were some lines you never cross. And honey badgers, he reflected with satisfaction, really didn't care how big their enemies were. The galaxy was about to discover why humans were the most dangerous species in known space. And it all started with one simple rule: never corner a human cub or their honey badger. The hidden exit led to a tunnel system that the Drakari didn't know existed. Alex followed the Ghost Battalion operatives through passages that had been quietly carved over the past week by human engineers who had arrived disguised as maintenance workers. The entire diplomatic mission had been a cover for the largest rescue operation in human history. "How many of you are there?" Alex asked as they moved through the tunnels, Rascal keeping pace beside them with the satisfaction of a predator who had successfully defended his territory. "Enough," Dr. Kim replied, checking her tactical display. The woman who had posed as a cultural specialist was actually Major Kim of the 7th Special Operations Regiment. "Your species doesn't do things halfway when children are involved." Behind them, the prison complex was in chaos. Rascal's attack had been just the beginning. While the honey badger had dealt with the immediate threat, human operatives had been systematically dismantling the fortress from within. Guard posts went dark, security systems failed, and communication networks crashed as Ghost Battalion revealed their true nature. Package secured, James Liu reported into his communicator. All secondary objectives complete. Request immediate extraction. The response came through speakers hidden throughout the tunnel system. Extraction confirmed, Colonel. Welcome to the party, Colonel. Alex realized that the diplomatic team had been led by one of humanity's most elite military officers. The Drakari had been negotiating with soldiers the entire time, never knowing how thoroughly they had been infiltrated. They emerged from the tunnels into a landing bay that definitely hadn't been there a week ago. Human combat engineers had carved it from solid rock, complete with defensive positions and equipment storage. 3 attack shuttles waited with engines running, their pilots ready for immediate departure. Alex Chen, the pilot of the lead shuttle, was a young woman with lieutenant's insignia. I'm Lieutenant Paula Vega. Your mom asked me to tell you she's safe and waiting for you. Alex felt relief wash over him. Is she really okay? See for yourself. Lieutenant Vega activated a communication screen. Dr. Priya Sharma's face appeared, showing obvious relief when she saw her son. Alex, are you hurt? Did they harm you? I'm fine, Mom. Rascal protected me. He actually bit one of their guards when the guy tried to hit me. Priya's expression shifted from relief to something much more dangerous. Like her son, she was a xenobiologist who understood predatory behavior. Good, I hope it hurt. Around them, the extraction proceeded with military precision. Other shuttles were landing, disgorging more human operatives who had been hidden throughout the Drakari capital. What the aliens had thought was a simple diplomatic mission had actually been the deployment of several hundred Special Forces personnel. Mom, how long have you known about the rescue plan? Alex asked. Since the day after they took you, Priya replied. The Ghost Battalion contacted me while I was being transferred to their holding facility. They needed information about Rascal's capabilities and your psychological profile. Turns out, having a son who bonds with enhanced honey badgers makes you valuable for tactical planning. The shuttles lifted off as explosions continued to rock the prison complex. Through the viewport, Alex could see the Drakari fortress burning. Guard towers collapsed. Weapon emplacements went silent, and emergency vehicles raced through the smoke trying to respond to dozens of simultaneous crises. What's happening to the complex? Alex asked Colonel Liu. Controlled demolition, the colonel replied matter-of-factly. Can't leave a facility intact after it's been used to hold human children. Sets a bad precedent. As they cleared the atmosphere, Alex got his first look at the space battle raging above Krath Prime. The Drakari home fleet, supposedly one of the most powerful naval forces in the galaxy, was being systematically dismantled by ships that didn't appear on any known registry. The human vessels were sleek, angular craft that moved with predatory grace. They struck like lightning and vanished before the Drakari could respond, reappearing in new positions to deliver devastating attacks. This wasn't the kind of naval battle seen in most conflicts. This was a demonstration of technological superiority. The Drakari fleet is 4 times larger, Alex observed, watching the tactical display. Size isn't everything, Lieutenant Vega replied. Those ships were designed by humans who understand that the best predators aren't the biggest ones. They're the smartest ones. Admiral Kate Morrison's flagship Retribution appeared on the main display, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the largest Drakari battleships. But rather than engaging in direct combat, it was coordinating the smaller vessels like a pack leader directing the hunt. Admiral Morrison, Colonel Liu reported, package delivered. All objectives achieved. Acknowledged, Colonel. Outstanding work. Alex, are you ready to go home? Alex looked around the shuttle at the men and women who had risked everything to rescue him. These were humanity's elite warriors, and they had mobilized an entire military operation to save one 12-year-old boy. Yes, ma'am, but what about the other species they've captured? What about the Zenthari merchants and the other prisoners? Already extracted, Admiral Morrison replied with satisfaction. Funny thing about prison breaks. Once you're inside, it's almost as easy to rescue everyone as it is to rescue one person. Every civilian prisoner in Drakari space is currently being evacuated. Below them, the battle was winding down. The Drakari fleet was either destroyed or fleeing, and their ground forces were in complete disarray. The mighty empire that had controlled 50 star systems was learning what happened when you threatened the wrong species. Admiral? Alex asked. What happens now? Will they try to take revenge? There was a pause before Admiral Morrison answered, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who spoke for all of humanity. Alex, there's something you need to understand about humans. We're not just individuals, we're pack animals. When you threaten one of us, especially one of our children, you threaten all of us. The Drakari thought they were negotiating with diplomats. They thought they were fighting a single species. They were wrong. Through the communication system, Alex could hear reports from across the galaxy. Human allies were mobilizing. Species that had been neutral were choosing sides. The galaxy was realizing that humanity had friends they hadn't known about, and enemies who had made a fatal mistake. The Drakari Empire will survive, Admiral Morrison continued, but they'll never threaten human children again, and neither will anyone else. Today the galaxy learns that there are consequences for harming our young. Alex settled back in his seat, one hand gently stroking Rascal's fur. The honey badger was calm now, his protective instincts satisfied. They had both done their part in the greatest rescue operation in galactic history. Looking out at the stars, Alex realized that this moment would be remembered forever. Not just by humans, but by every species in known space. Today, the galaxy had learned that some lines should never be crossed. And it all started with one simple truth: never corner a human cub or their honey badger. Because when you do, you discover that Earth is home to the most dangerous predators in the universe. 1 month after the Krath Prime incident, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 300 species gathered in the massive chamber on Nexus Station, but all attention focused on the small human boy sitting at the witness table with a honey badger on his lap. Alex Chen looked remarkably calm for someone who had single-handedly changed galactic politics. Beside him, Rascal surveyed the assembled aliens with the confidence of a predator who had proven himself in battle. The honey badger wore a small translation collar that allowed him to understand the proceedings, though he seemed more interested in the security guard's nervous reactions to his presence. The council recognizes Alex Chen of Earth, announced Councillor Thalas, the elderly Arcturian who served as session moderator. You have been invited to testify regarding the recent actions of the Drakari Empire. Alex stood up, careful not to disturb Rascal, and looked around the chamber. A month ago, he had been just another human child living on a frontier station. Now representatives of hundreds of species hung on his every word. Honorable councilors, Alex began, his young voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak. What happened on Krath Prime wasn't just about me. It was about what happens when any species threatens children. In the Drakari section, the few remaining representatives sat in stunned silence. Their empire, which had controlled 50 star systems just weeks ago, now controlled 12. The rest had either declared independence or been liberated by human forces. Emperor Drakthul himself was in exile, his throne occupied by a reform government that was desperately trying to rebuild diplomatic relations. The Drakari thought they understood humans, Alex continued. They saw us as just another species to be intimidated. But they made a mistake. They hurt children. And humans don't negotiate when children are threatened. We eliminate threats. Councillor Veltara of the Zenthari delegation leaned forward. The peaceful traders had become some of humanity's strongest advocates after witnessing the rescue operation firsthand. Young Alex, she said gently, many species in this chamber are concerned about humanity's military capabilities. Your rescue required forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. How do we know humans won't use this power for conquest? Alex looked at Rascal, who chittered softly. The honey badger's meaning was clear. Explain it so they understand. Councillor Veltara, honey badgers are considered the most fearless animals on Earth. They'll fight anything, no matter how big or dangerous. Lions, hyenas, even crocodiles. But you know what honey badgers don't do? They don't hunt for sport. They don't attack unless threatened. They just want to be left alone to protect their families. Alex gestured to the assembled delegates. Humans are the honey badgers of space. We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to protect our cubs. But if you threaten our children, you'll discover that Earth produces the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Admiral Kate Morrison sat in the human delegation, watching her young citizen with pride. The military operation to rescue Alex had cost the Human Defense Alliance enormous resources, but the political benefits were incalculable. Dozens of species had requested defense treaties. Hundreds more had opened diplomatic relations. And everyone now understood that humans took child protection very seriously. Admiral Morrison called Counselor Drakvin, one of the few Drakari brave enough to attend the session. The Empire wishes to formally apologize for our actions. We had no understanding of human protective instincts, but many species question whether your response was proportional. Admiral Morrison rose slowly, her expression neutral but her eyes cold. Counselor, let me be very clear about human proportional response doctrine. When our children are threatened, we don't calculate proportional responses. We calculate effective ones. The Drakari Empire learned this lesson. I hope other species won't need similar instruction. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate understood the implication. The humans had dismantled a galactic empire to rescue 12 people, including one child. The message was unmistakable. Don't threaten human children. However, Admiral Morrison continued, we're not unreasonable. The new Drakari government has agreed to protocols protecting all children in their territory. In return, we're providing humanitarian aid and technical assistance. Humans believe in redemption as much as we believe in protection. Alex watched the proceedings with fascination. Politics was more complex than xenobiology, but the underlying patterns were similar. Species competed for resources and territory, formed alliances for mutual benefit, and established hierarchies based on strength and intelligence. What was different was humanity's approach to child protection. Most species defended their own young, but humans had extended that protection to include all children. The rescue of the Xanthari younglings and other alien children had shocked the galaxy more than any military demonstration. Young Alex, Counselor Thalis said, you have become something of a galactic celebrity. How do you feel about the attention? Alex smiled and scratched behind Rascal's ears. The honey badger made a contented sound that the translation collar rendered as, life is good when family is safe. I just want to go back to studying xenobiology with my parents, Alex said honestly. But if my experience helps other children stay safe, then I'm glad it happened. Well, not glad it happened, but glad something good came from it. And what about your companion? Asked Counselor Veltara, eyeing Rascal with the mixture of fascination and nervousness that the honey badger seemed to inspire in all non-humans. He has become quite famous as well. Alex looked down at Rascal, who was now studying the security guards with professional interest. The honey badger had adapted to galactic celebrity with typical honey badger indifference. Fame meant nothing to a creature that had once climbed onto a Drakari warrior and proceeded to demonstrate why honey badgers feared nothing. Rascal just wants to protect his family, Alex said. He doesn't care about politics or fame. He cares about keeping me safe. That's what honey badgers do. As the session concluded, delegates from dozens of species approached the human section. Some wanted to discuss defense treaties. Others offered trade agreements. A few simply wanted to meet the boy and his honey badger who had changed galactic politics. But the most significant moment came when the Cathari delegation, representing a species known for their aggressive expansion policies, quietly approached Admiral Morrison. Admiral, the Cathari representative said in hushed tones, our intelligence services have been studying recent events. We want to ensure there are no misunderstandings regarding human territorial boundaries. Admiral Morrison smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both diplomatic and threatening. I'm sure we can avoid any unfortunate incidents, Ambassador. Humans are very reasonable, as long as our children are safe. As the delegation prepared to leave Nexus Station, Alex found himself surrounded by young aliens from various species. Word had spread that the human boy was approachable and kind, unlike the terrifying adults who had dismantled an empire. Is it true that all human adults will fight to protect children? Asked a young Xanthari, her large eyes wide with curiosity. Not just human children, Alex confirmed. All children. That's what makes humans different. We think all cubs deserve protection. A small Arcturian youngling pointed at Rascal with a trembling finger. Is your honey badger really dangerous? Alex looked down at Rascal, who was lying peacefully in his carrier, looking like nothing more than a furry, sleepy animal. Only to people who try to hurt his family. Otherwise, he's very gentle. As if to prove the point, Rascal allowed the young alien to gently touch his fur. The honey badger's enhanced intelligence recognized the difference between threats and innocent curiosity. Later, as they boarded the transport back to human space, Alex reflected on the past month. The galaxy had learned important lessons about humanity, but humans had learned something too. They weren't alone in the universe, and there were good species worth protecting. Think this will change anything? Dr. Priya Sharma asked her son as they settled in for the journey home. Alex looked out at the stars, where human ships now patrolled space lanes that had once been controlled by the Drakari Empire. In the distance, he could see vessels from dozens of species flying under the protection of the Human Defense Alliance. I think it already has, Mom, Alex said. The galaxy knows about humans now. They know what we'll do to protect children, but more importantly, they know we'll protect their children too. Rascal chittered softly from his carrier, and Alex smiled. In honey badger language, it meant mission accomplished. 6 months later, in a military briefing room on a distant world, an intelligence officer from the Krath hegemony presented a file to his superiors. The aggressive species had been considering raids on human frontier settlements, hoping to capture civilians for slave labor. Sir, the officer said nervously, I've completed the threat assessment on human settlements. I strongly recommend we find different targets. Why? Demanded the hegemony's war chief. They're just another species with a few colonies. The intelligence officer activated a holographic display showing footage from Krath Prime. Explosions lit up the night sky as the Drakari, Empire's most secure fortress, crumbled under human assault. In the center of the chaos, a small figure could be seen evacuating with what appeared to be a furry animal. Sir, this is what humans call the Alex Chen incident. It's become required study material for military academies across the galaxy. One child caused all that destruction? No, sir. One child being threatened caused all that destruction. The humans have a saying that's become quite popular among military planners. Never corner a human cub or their honey badger. I recommend we take that advice very seriously. The war chief studied the footage for a long moment, watching the systematic dismantling of what had been one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Find different targets, he ordered quietly. And across the galaxy, in nurseries and schools and family homes, children of dozens of species slept safely under the protection of humans who had made it clear that some lines should never be crossed. The galaxy had learned its lesson well.